Welcome back. We are talking with Toinette Madison. She's the manager of the Boone County Heritage Museum.
The director.
Oh, I'm sorry, the director. And she manages everything there. And if you've not been to the Boone County Heritage Museum, you need to stop by. There's a small entrance fee. And what is that entrance fee?
$5 for adults.
$5 for
Children
a tour?
12 and under are free.
Okay. And we're talking about genealogy, and they have a service there every Thursday
Thursday evening.
at 7 o'clock. And if you're interested in that,
You
come
can
by.
call for an appointment. Can I
Okay.
give that number?
You bet.
741-3312, and we'll
So
fix
they need
you.
to call. They can't
Yeah,
just show up.
well,
right?
if I had several at one time, then it
Right.
would be
Yeah.
hard. So if they call for an appointment, then we can fix them up. Let them know when to come.
But we have been talking about the rentals line in this area, and I think they actually started in Newton County. They moved here, homesteaded some property, and from my understanding, and there's ways of checking all that out. You can go to the Newton County courthouse and find land records and all that. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can do that.
Certainly.
But let's start off with my great-grandfathers, who you have on the first slide, and we can look at that if you guys have that ready. And what are we looking
there
at
we
here?
go.
What kind of...
That is a World War I registration card where he registered for the draft for World War I. And I just kind of threw these in as a bonus. Came across them while I
Okay.
was doing research and didn't know if you'd seen those. A lot of folks haven't seen
Okay.
their families. A lot of information on there: hair color, eye color, height. Those
Yeah, it
types
gives
of
you an
things.
You kind of want to know what the guy looks like, or who the
Exactly.
females are in your family.
Yeah.
William Thomas Reynolds was my great-grandfather, my grandfather's dad, and I think, and actually, Thomas's dad moved here from Alabama, is what I found this week. So now who was registering for the draft there? Was that him? Was that William Thomas?
Yes, that was William Thomas.
Well, it's funny to notice that he registered for the draft, but he was how old?
He in World War I. I'm not sure. I can't make that out here.
I think
but
it was 53 years old.
57 when he
57.
registered for the World War II draft.
Was that required back then?
They went pretty deep. I believe my husband's grandfather went at 42. I
Wow.
believe, yeah.
Oh my
They went
gosh.
pretty deep for World
Well,
War
they've
II.
changed those rules quite a bit.
Certainly,
I think 35 is the maximum age
Yeah.
that you can register. But that was
Yeah.
odd. When I saw that, I go, why is he registering for
Yeah.
that back
Yeah.
then? Yeah.
It was they did. It was different then, and it took a lot of guys. A lot of them weren't as young as you might think they were at that
Yeah.
time.
Wow.
Yeah. And the First World War was early 1900s.
Yeah. I want to say 1980. Oh, you put me on the spot now.
Sorry.
It was in the teens. Yeah. It was,
Yeah.
I know. I think it was going on in 18 for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Yeah. Either or ended there.
I wonder if that had anything to do with the Civil War being in the 1800s, 1860s. And,
Early
or
1860s. Yeah.
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 because there was a lot of people on the north and the south that perished in that war. I mean,
Oh,
thousands
yes.
and thousands of men.
Yes, it was horrific.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it took a lot of men for World War II, too. They were anticipating that, and I think that's why they did go. Like I said, my husband's grandfather went at 42, and he had children, at home,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
it was a real hardship on the family. So I think it affected so many people. That's why you look back on it. It's so, I hate to say romanticized, but that time period is so interesting, and it really affected and touched everybody.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to watch period pieces like that from the comfort of your air-conditioned home.
Absolutely.
But living through that where there was no air conditioning and,
Right.
and very limited electricity and amenities, it
Yes.
wasn't all that romantic when times were
No,
tough.
No doubt.
no, when it was going on, I'm sure it wasn't.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we go to the next slide number 2, and we'll see what we've got there.
We may have talked about that. That may be the
We talked
World
about this one already?
Maybe the World War II. That's the second part of the World War I.
Okay.
There were 2 of those. So the next one, if we can go to that,
Okay.
that is the World War II. And there we see, like you said, he's 57 years old.
Okay, that's the one I was looking at.
Yeah.
So he's registering again.
Yeah.
Wow.
One
Wow.
and 2. If you notice, I don't know if you've ever noticed the World War I memorial on the Court Square. downtown,
Yeah.
but it says the World War Memorial. It doesn't say World War I because they were not
They weren't label it. They probably didn't
they
label it
weren't-
until.
no, they weren't anticipating another one. You know,
Yeah.
they were thinking that would be the only one. And here we have a gentleman
Mm.
who twice in his lifetime has registered for the draft
Yeah.
for those.
Well, that's a bit of history that you probably wouldn't even comprehend or logically come up with until you see actual records.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. We have a lot of those Boone County records at the Boone County Heritage Museum. We have a all wars room where you can go and see uniforms, and if you're you have relatives who served there, we have some of their registration cards there. We have the newspaper articles that came out about each soldier. You know, we have those on file. There are things that the families did, and you know, everybody had a flag in their window if they had a son in, and we have some of those. It's just really
Yeah.
neat to sort of be able to walk back through that
Interesting.
that time. So
Okay.
there's a lot of things you can see
Cool.
there if you come and see us. Now the next one we started with, I believe this is in 1920, not
Okay.
too awful long ago.
That would be number 4 or 5.
I believe so. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4.
There.
Okay.
There we go. That, yes, it's 1920, and we have Tom Reynolds, and in his house there you can see,
Now it's in yellow. That's him. And that's 1920. This is a census record. Is that correct?
it is, the
Okay.
census. They were, and you're looking at the actual record. That
So
the-
next to the name you see, what does it say? Head. Does that mean head of the household?
That means head of the household.
Okay.
And those are, the other ones highlighted there are the ones in his house.
Myrtle,
Myrtle was his wife.
and then Wilburn, which is my grandfather.
Your grandfather, yes, there he is. So there in one shot we have your grandpa and your great-grandpa.
Wow.
In 1920.
20, and he was, my grandfather was 7 years old.
7
And,
years old.
Yeah, 35 was Thomas. And
I see.
you got, what are the, it's male, right next to the name.
Male,
It's a
female.
I don't know
male,
what
female, male,
what's
female.
the W then?
That's race.
Okay.
Race, and then age, and then married or single, I
Okay.
believe. Each year had different information, and we'll see a little bit of that.
Okay.
1940, for instance, if there was a circle beside their name, that's the one they were talking to. That's the one that gave them the information. And they
Okay.
asked different questions. They got better at it as it went along.
Yeah.
Because the farther back you go, the less information there is. And we'll see that too, and as we get back
Yeah.
there. So, and we're going backwards. So if we want to go to 5.
Slide 5, okay.
That is 1900, I believe, and we just talked about seeing Wilburn in that house. And now we're looking, his father was Tom, and now he's the son.
Oh,
in
he's
the
the
house.
son,
Oh, I
okay,
He's
see.
the
so,
son in the house, so now we got your great-grandpa and your great-great-grandpa in the same house.
and his name is
Huh.
John, is that John?
John
John.
Thomas, I believe.
John Thomas, okay.
This is still the Reynolds family, and there's a lot of information here in 1900 going on, and you can see all the brothers and sisters that are there in that house. There's a Reynolds that's living next to them. You can see down below. So
Oh, okay.
that's probably a relative.
Relative, okay.
Absolutely.
So if
And-
you're tracking somebody, you can actually, if you hit a brick wall, you can go to their relatives and see if there's any records on them.
More than once, there's been a case of like a misspelling or a mispronunciation, and so it makes it really hard to find a family. But if you start looking for, friends or family you know that they were going to be with, and then it's a little harder, but I've found folks that way. To
Yeah.
start looking for, because if you couldn't find him at all, you look for his brother. He's next door, or
Yeah.
he's at least in the same township or area. So it makes it easier.
Can we go back to that slide, guys? And I want to make a comment about, that was slide 5 or 6, I can't remember.
I believe it was 5.
Yeah, okay, that one. If you look all the way to the right there, it shows where they're living. It says Arkansas, and it's also the column next to that says where they moved from or their birth state. Is that right?
The first one is their birthplace, and the second one is their father, And then there's a third column out there we can't
Okay.
see, that is their mother, where they were born.
Okay, so they actually came from Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Is what that
They were
shows.
there. Yeah.
So if you're doing a search and you want to focus on a person, you can go to, if you know where their state is, you can do state, or if you know the county, you can add the county, right? So you
It's-
can narrow it down.
It certainly helps, yes, to have that information. You know, it's invaluable when you're doing research, and you know that people traveled more then, I think, than they did now. And a lot of times the
They
kids
traveled more then.
I believe so. I mean, and it may be because
Yeah.
I'm paying more attention. They certainly lived in more places. It seemed like. A lot of times the children were all you know, several of them born in different states. You know, but it sort of travels a path, and mainly folks came through Tennessee or Alabama and Georgia up this way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, that's invaluable information, and it helps to verify. It'll come up later because it helps to verify who they were. That's another, sometimes you can't come up with a concrete. You can't put them in the same house like we're doing here. And so, well, were they born in the right place? Were
Yeah.
they, you know, were they living in the right vicinity? Those types of things you have to look at.
Yeah, and you
pay
have to
attention
also consider that compared to our lives are complicated.
Yes.
I mean, we know the details of every day. When we're looking at records like that, it just shows one day.
Exactly.
Shows where they lived on that one day.
That
They
one
could have
day.
they could have lived in one county and moved 3 times and then came back to a certain
That's
area.
right.
You know, so you
That's
don't really
right.
know the detail of the stories.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
There are lots of other things to look at, but we're still getting a snapshot.
Right.
And with all the different clues and things that you can put together, it sort of gives you a whole.
Yeah.
You know, it really puts things in perspective whenever you delve into this type of thing and start looking into our ancestors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are we making a change from the Reynolds as yet, or are we still tracking them
We're
backwards?
still tracking. Well, we're getting close. I think
Okay.
the next shot actually shows where I took the little detour.
Okay.
We were there with John, and John's wife was Julie Spears. This is just a record of their marriage. It's not the actual marriage record, but it tells us that record exists, and that they were married in, let's see here, in
She was
1884, I believe. Yes, that wasn't
16 years old.
at all uncommon at
He
all
was
at that time.
29, 20? I can't read it.
Yeah, I think so. I
Yeah,
can't
they-
tell if that's a
they
6
were-
or
I
an
think it's
8.
I think
It
it's
may
a
be an
20.
18.
Okay.
I can't tell for sure.
He's 20
Yeah,
years old. And
but
she's
that
16.
wasn't at all uncommon for that
Right.
time. They certainly, no doubt, she could run a household and probably had
Mm-hmm.
been helping for a
Right.
long time. Yeah.
Well, their lives were more simpler, but they had to provide everything for themselves.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
They even had to make their own soap
That's right.
and butter and cheese, and I mean, you had to.
Yeah.
You had your, and most of my family were farmers,
Mhm.
so they had to have, if they were going to go out on their own, they had to have a wife to take care of the home, and then the children, and of course the women did a lot of work too. They tilled the garden and
Absolutely.
fed the animals and milked the cows.
And the children had responsibilities, and if everyone didn't do their part, it didn't work a lot of times.
Right.
So everybody came up knowing you had to do that. I know I've heard my grandmother talk about sitting around the fireplace on a certain night of the week and shelling the corn.
Yeah.
And if they all didn't sit down and shell the corn, then they didn't have bread the next week. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
the cornbread and things like that. But it's just something you did,
Yeah. Oh,
something
yeah.
you had to do.
Walmart was not even in the equation.
Absolutely not. No. No.
So we're looking at Spears now.
Yes, and when I saw
And
that
you
he-
decided to take a
This was
detour.
your
I
rabbit trail.
did. I'm kind of looking everywhere.
But that's the great thing about doing this. You can track one person or one family and see where they.
Absolutely.
If it says they were from North Carolina, you know, let's see where that goes.
Exactly, and it's been very interesting to me. They all are, and like I said, everybody has a story. So I wish I had brought a chart that exists out there. We all have 4 grandparents. Well, that means we have 8 grandparents, and we have 16 great-great-grandparents.
Right, yeah.
Then we have 32 great-great-great-grandparents. And I'll
Yeah,
let you, you have
wow. Yeah.
the Y chromosome, so you can do the math from here. That's where I stop. But it just keeps growing exponentially. And, 100 years ago is not that long ago anymore
Right.
when you really start delving
Yeah,
into it.
yeah.
So there are all these interesting characters without whom if one of them is taken out of the link, we're not who we are.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Interesting.
really neat. But this is where we bring Julie in. And I found out that Julie was from Bedford County, Tennessee. And like I said, I was in Bedford County just a few
Well,
weeks
where
ago.
is Bedford in relationship
It's about,
to everything?
The county seat of Bedford is Shelbyville, and it's about
Is that around?
it's about 30,
Nashville, or?
40 miles south of Nashville,
Okay.
just directly.
Oh, okay.
And there's about 3 counties there. There's Marshall, Bedford, and Coffee County that I do a lot of research in. And I noticed your folks were in Marshall County as well. Probably the same situation there that was here when, Boone County didn't exist until 1869. It was Carroll County until then, and they took a
Oh, okay.
big piece of Carroll County, a little piece of Marion County, and made Boone County.
Well,
It's more interesting than that, but we'll gloss over that right now.
Yeah.
So anyway, those areas, and I saw Julie was there, so I just sort of went down that
Okay.
way to see if there was anybody I knew down there. And
so that was the mother of John Thomas or John.
she married John, and she was the mother of. Let's see, they all had the same names. Too,
I know
so
John and John L, John T,
Yes, they were
Or William.
William's mother.
William.
William's
Okay.
mother. So she is your 3rd great-grandmother, I believe, or 2nd or 3rd. Now I'm lost. But anyway, so we started chasing her, and we found her in 1880, which will be the next slide.
Okay.
Now they're already up here in the area in 1880.
Okay. So when John moved to this area, he met her in Arkansas.
They were
Okay.
met and married here.
So it'd be interesting to find out where they met. Could have been going to church together, or
Absolutely, yeah.
or they may have met at the feed mill on the weekend when they
Having
were
the
coming
corn
to get feed.
ground, certainly. Yeah.
Certainly.
That's a possibility. Or there were lots of social activities that we don't think about today.
Yeah.
They had gatherings and different things to so that happened, because it wasn't easy to
Yeah.
do.
Well, when I was a young boy, I'd stay with my grandmother, and everybody that would drive down the dirt road, she'd say, and my grandfather's name is Wilburn. She goes, "Wilburn, who is that?" And so that was their social activity. They would walk toward the door, find out whose car it was, and say, "Oh, that was Essie from
Yeah.
down the road." But they knew everybody, and people would stop in and bring eggs or
Absolutely.
extra things from the garden, and they would do the same thing.
Yes.
And they
times
knew a lot more people than they did. Than we do
Certainly.
now.
And things have really changed. Saw a spoof on Facebook the other day, a company 20 years ago, and the kids would get excited, who is it, who is it? And now you're throwing things under the couch and, closing the
Yeah.
shutters.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very different.
Very different.
And sometimes that's unfortunate, I think. But
Well,
I remember those times. I listened to some interviews that I believe are in the National Archives that were done in Newton County in the 70s. And they're not named, but they're on the website and you can listen. And the things you hear, like the screen door slamming or water pouring. We forgot about that. A lot of people carried water and
They
poured
carried
it in
water,
the dish pan. Those sounds that we've totally forgotten, to hear those again was really special.
Or the younger generation would yell.
What is
So-
it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's take a break right here, and when we come back, we'll be talking more about. We've actually taken a detour away from the Reynolds family. We're tracking the Spears down
That's
in
right.
Tennessee, so we'll be talking about that in just a few minutes. Stay with us. You are watching 726 right here in Harrison.